Mr. Trump, you made your name and your fortune by becoming America's most successful real estate developer. In recent years, you've become equally visible as an entertainer, yes, but also as an educator, through The Apprentice, through your books, and now with the launch of Trump University. My question is this: in the business world, why is education so important?
It gives you an advantage, it gives you an edge. In fact, sometimes it gives you a very big edge. So people with education just have the advantage over people without. It doesn't mean that other people aren't going to be successful, but they certainly don't have the advantage.
Let's talk for a moment about your own education. You spent your later high school years at the New York Military Academy. You went on to graduate from the prestigious Wharton School of Business of the University of Pennsylvania. How did what you experienced then in your education contribute to the success you enjoy today?
Well, I think maybe more than anything else, my education gave me confidence. I went to Wharton. Wharton School is, to me and probably to most people, including Business Week, the #1 business school in the world. And I did very well. I was a good student. I liked being a student. I enjoyed it. People are sometimes surprised to hear that I was a really good student, but that's okay. But I liked it. I liked academic life. But beyond everything else, I was able to compete, and more than compete, with very, very smart people. And when I came out into the world, in addition to what I knew, I had a sense of confidence.
You've learned from mentors, notably your father, Fred Trump. For someone in pursuit of success, what do you see as the value of personal mentorship from your experience?
Well, my father was my great mentor. He was my friend and he was my mentor, and I learned a lot just by sitting at his knee. And you learn from being with people that are smart and being with people that have just done it. And you learn a lot. And if you don't learn, you're not very smart. And you know what? That's okay. It doesn't mean you're not going to be happy. It means you're not going to be very successful. But you may be a guy that's not so successful that's happy. And in the end, maybe that's the most successful person of all. But you're not going to make great wealth if you don't learn. Having mentors is a great thing if they're the right mentors. Having Fred Trump for a dad was really lucky for me. I was very lucky. And, you know, you have to be a little bit lucky in life. And whether we learn at Trump University or don't learn at Trump University, there's always going to be the element of luck. And I tell that to people, and I shouldn't be telling them, because they'll say, well, if it's luck, then what do I have to study for? I'll just roll the dice. The fact is, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And as you learn and as you progress, you will get more and more successful if you're doing it the right way. But there is always an element of luck.
Let's talk for a moment about business education in America today. You see the results of it, good and bad, in the people you deal with every day. In your view, what's positive and what could be improved about the business education we have right now?
Well, oftentimes business education today, and I see it all the time, kids come out of college, the best colleges, Wharton and Harvard and Stanford and some of the great business schools, and they'll come out and they won't have practical experience. And I think one thing that business colleges should be focusing on more is practical. In other words, get out there and do it. There's too many case studies that aren't practical. So I see a tremendous lack of practicality in what people are learning today in business school.
So now you've launched Trump University. What does this new venture mean to you?
Well, Trump University is something that I'm very proud of. I'm proud of the concept. I'm proud of what's happened. And it really began a few years ago. I'd go and make a speech, and I'd make it for a group that normally would get 300 or 400 or 500 people, and over 10,000 people would show up. And I'd say, what's going on over here? And they wanted to hear what I had to say, and that's a great honor. And then I'd go and do something else, and people would rent a ballroom, and they'd call me up, and they'd say they needed a bigger ballroom, and then they'd call me up again, and they needed to go to the Jacob Javits Convention Center. So I felt there was a lot of people, or there would be a lot of people, and are a lot of people out there that want to learn something, and they want to learn it from me, and I'm just honored by it.
So all over the world, it's not just in America, because Trump University will be online. It's going to have an international reach. All over the world, people will be buying courses and programs carrying your name. What do you most want them to get out of their membership in Trump University?
Well, I want them to get knowledge. I want them to get success. I want them to be really successful, because most of the people that go to Trump University are going to be ambitious people. They're going to be type A personalities. They're going to be people that want to succeed. Now, there are different forms of success. Happiness is a form of success. But monetary success, I think, is really what I'm looking to give. And the people that are going to study under Trump University and in Trump University are going to be people that want to be successful in business, and we're going to make them successful in business.
The faculty of Trump University, the people who are going to be doing the teaching, are emphasizing what they call learning by doing, a big focus on action, on testing new knowledge out by trial and error. From what you're saying about the missing element in current business education, that would seem to have a relevant value to you.
I think that's true, and relevant value is something that's very, very hard to define. Value is a very hard word to define, but I have terrific people coming in, and we're going to have professors and adjunct professors that are absolutely terrific, terrific people, terrific brains, successful, the best. We are going to have the best of the best. And honestly, if you don't learn from them, if you don't learn from me, if you don't learn from the people that we're going to be putting forward, and these are all people that are hand-picked by me, then you're just not going to make it in terms of the world of success. And that's okay, but you're not going to make it in terms of success.
Well, the chances are that the person watching this conversation has made a decision to create greater success and wealth in their life. What are the essential qualities of mind required?
Well, I think that, number one, the people that are watching us right now are really people that are very driven, and they're driven toward financial success and success generally. I believe that Trump University, if I can teach one thing, and there are going to be many things, and we're going to be very specific, but if I can teach one thing, it's you must love what you're doing. If you don't love what you're doing, you'll never, ever be successful. You and I can work hours and hours on trying to teach somebody something, but if that person doesn't love what he or she really is doing, we're wasting our time. The other thing is never, ever give up. Just keep going forward. Never stop. It may seem like you have no chance. It may seem like it's over. Never, ever quit. If you're a quitter, I hope you quit right now and stop watching immediately, because you'll never make it.
You've written about quite often about the power of positive thinking, and in fact your father, I believe, was a friend of Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote a famous book of that name. Obviously, having a positive attitude feels better, but does it really impact business results?
The Power of Positive Thinking was one of the great books ever written, and one of the great business books, actually, in a sense, although Norman Vincent Peale didn't mean it to be a business book. But Power of Positive Thinking, when you think of it, it makes so much sense, and I'm a big believer. But I'm also a believer in the power of negative thinking, and the reason is that you really want to guard against the downside. You can't just go in like it's a big bowl of roses. If you think somewhat negatively, and I say that in all due respect, and keep your guard up. You know, the fighters have an expression, keep the left up. They mean keep the left up and block from the punches. Having a little bit of negativity is not so bad, because you'll keep that guard up and you'll keep your defenses up. So having a little bit of negativity is not so bad. But overall, the power of positive thinking, wonderful.
Your latest book is called Think Like a Billionaire. When did you first think like a billionaire? Before you became one or afterwards?
Well, I really think that I began thinking like a billionaire when I was in high school and when I was in preschool. I've always had this kind of thought process that was very positive but very guarded. And that's what I mean by negativity. But it was positive but guarded. And I think that when I wrote the book, and the reason it became a #1 bestseller, and even, I guess, to a certain extent, a bigger bestseller, was the one I wrote just before it, How to Get Rich. Trump, How to Get Rich. And it's been a tremendous selling book. I happen to think the title is better. I think the books are equal, and maybe Billionaire is actually better. But the title of How to Get Rich, I mean, that says it all. That says it better than Think Like a Billionaire. Think Like a Billionaire is wonderful, but people aren't relating to it and can't relate to it as much as Trump, How to Get Rich. But these two books became #1 bestsellers. They've been terrific books, and they're going to be a big part of our course because it does set out my thinking.
Your first book, The Art of the Deal, begins with a simple sentence that many people might find hard to understand. You say, I don't do it for the money. Can you explain that?
Well, I do it because I love it. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. I have bad days, I have good days, I have days somewhere in the middle. But the end result is I love what I'm doing, and I don't do it for the money. And I make money because probably I'm not doing it for the money. I do it, and I do it well. I'm the biggest developer in New York. I love building buildings. I have a lot of fun building buildings. The fact is, I do it for fun, I do it for game, I do it for sport. I happen to make a lot of money doing it. If I didn't enjoy it, if I didn't really love what I'm doing, I wouldn't be successful, I wouldn't be sitting with you today, and I wouldn't have Trump University.
And what's the implication of that for someone watching this who wants to create greater wealth? What's the message in that, do you think?
Well, the message is you have to love what you do. If you do it for the money alone, it's probably not going to work. I have friends where I tell them, get out of this business, which is a good business, and go into another business, which isn't as good a business, because they like the other business better. They'll do better in a less good business, so to speak, than they will in the better business because they like it.
You're famous or notorious for your work ethic. You've got everything that most people would dream of, and you don't let up. This quality of self-discipline, is it something that you were born with, or can it be learned?
Well, I think self-discipline can be learned. I think you really can teach yourself self-discipline. If you want something badly enough, you'll probably have discipline. If you're going to be a great athlete, you have to work hard. If you're going to be a great business person, you have to work hard. It's no different. It's a different form of work. But self-discipline's a very important word toward success, and you really have to have it. And if you don't have it, most likely you're not going to be successful.
You're also renowned as a developer for your obsession with quality, from the big picture architectural concept right down to the last doorknob. How has that contributed to your success?
Well, it doesn't have to be all quality. I mean, I know a lot of people that make junk, and they make it inexpensively, and they sell it inexpensively, and there's a market for it, and that's fine. But it doesn't always have to be quality. I mean, not everybody can make the best building. Not everybody can make the best golf course or hotel or whatever it is you may be doing, because the world doesn't want the best. I mean, not everybody's going to spend $1,000 a night for a hotel room. People have to spend $20 a night for a hotel room and $10. So you can't always do the best. But you can do relatively the best, and you can do a really good job of it, and you can be very, very successful at doing it. I happen to choose high-end and the best. For me, that works. But not everybody can do that. And if the world did that, it would be a pretty competitive and very sad place.
Mr. Trump, so far as I know, you've never been accused of false modesty. Is self-promotion for you a personal sport, or is it a business strategy that others can learn from?
Well, I don't consider myself a good promoter. I really consider myself a great builder. I think I build the best product, and then all of a sudden you see this building going up and you see it selling out, and everyone says, oh, Trump did such a great promotion. The fact is that if you take like the Trump World Tower opposite the United Nations that was recently completed, it's a great building. It's the tallest residential building in the world. I built it. I fought on it. I fought the unions. I fought the world. I fought financials. I fought everything. And then I get it built, and it becomes a tremendous success, and everyone said, he's such a great promoter. It had nothing to do with it. The building promoted itself because it was great architecture. Herbert Muschamp in the New York Times recently wrote that it's a great building. I mean, he gave it a tremendous review. And other people have as well. It's just a great building, and it's self-promoted. So I've always considered myself to be a great builder, not a great promoter. Some people would say that I'm a very good promoter. I consider myself to be a great builder.
So the lesson in that would be, if I'm understanding you right, don't focus on making your name famous. Focus on the quality of what you do.
I think that's true. I mean, the name will follow. I know people that want to build up their name and they haven't done anything. I say you have to do something. You can't just do that. You need the credibility of doing something. And yes, I think that's very well put.
There's an art to making money, and there's also an art to keeping money. We might speak here of financial intelligence, the ability to manage cash. How important is that ability, and how can it be developed?
Well, managing cash is very important. Managing your wealth is very important. And even myself, in the early 90s, I had some really difficult times. The real estate markets crashed. To be honest, I wasn't totally focused. I was having such a good time. It was coming in too easily. And I went back to work, and I did a great job. I've always said the greatest job I've ever done was from 1990 to 1994. That was the greatest. There were 4 years of hell, and other people went bankrupt, and you'll never hear from them again. And my company became bigger and bigger and stronger to a point where now I'm one of the largest privately held companies in New York, and it's been a real success story. And I believe the Guinness Book of World Records had me as the greatest personal financial comeback of all time. I don't know if that's an honor or not, because I don't view it as a comeback. I view it as just a steady stream of work. Some days are good, some days are bad. But the fact is that I have had a lot of fun, and I've had a good time doing what I'm doing.
Well, whether we call it an honor or not, it certainly could be an education and an inspiration. What carried you through those difficult times?
Well, I think more than anything else, it was hope. I really felt that I was going to get through it. I owed billions of dollars to banks. Some of it was personally guaranteed. Hundreds and hundreds of millions was personally guaranteed. The real estate markets crashed. So I can't completely blame myself. Congress changed tax laws, which changed real estate and what you do, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, right in the middle of it, they changed the laws. So sometimes you're a victim of circumstance. Sometimes you're your own worst enemy. But the fact is that I really viewed hope. And I came up with an expression that a lot of people have since used, and this was done in 1990. Survive till 95. That was my expression. Survive till 95. I felt that if I could survive till 95, just keep it going by pennies, by pennies, by pennies, that the markets would change and things would get better. And that's what happened. I kept what I had. I survived till 95. I was a wheeler dealer like nobody. I was out every night having dinner with somebody, whether it was a bank or this or that. I mean, it was somebody always having to do with business. If I went out on a personal dinner, I felt I was doing myself a tremendous disservice. I did nothing but go out to lunches and dinners with bankers and very important people, having only and exclusively to do with my business. And in the end, I survived till 95. The market started changing. The world started getting great. And now my company is much bigger, much stronger than it ever was before, including in the 80s, when a lot of people said, oh, Trump was so great in the 80s. Now they say Trump is greater in the year 2000 and 2005 and the 2000s than he was in the 1980s. So I went back to work. I never, ever worked harder in my life. And now I can honestly say, and everybody else agrees with me, including every newspaper, every business magazine, and everybody that watches The Apprentice on television, that I'm better now than I was, by far, than I was in the 1980s.
Speaking of The Apprentice, in the very first episode of the first series, you gathered the candidates in the New York Stock Exchange, and then you sent them out onto the streets to sell lemonade. Why is the ability to sell such an essential business skill?
I know many, many people, and if they're not salesmen, it's not going to work. They can have the greatest gidget or gadget. They can have the finest piece of real estate. If you can't have and don't have the ability to sell, you're at a tremendous disadvantage. Now, a lot of people make up for the lack of salesmanship by pure brain power, and it can work. You don't have to be a good salesman. Maybe you'll get somebody who is a good salesman to work for you, maybe, if you're lucky enough. But the ability to sell is a wonderful asset, and it's something that the people at Trump University will be very, very cognizant of. It's going to be a very important part of our classes. They used to have classes many, many years ago. My father would take salesmanship classes, and whether it was Arthur Murray or this or that, old line salesmanship classes, and he always felt that was good for him. We are going to have classes in salesmanship at Trump University. It makes your life very much easier. Now, salesmanship's an interesting word. You can learn, you can study, you can do whatever you want to do. Most salesmen are, to an extent, born with it. But if you're not born with it, you can become good. Maybe not great, but you can become good, very adequate. Usually, when I see somebody who's a great salesman, they've sort of always been naturally a great salesman. But you can learn. And by the way, the great ones can get better.
Can you think of an example of someone you admire with those skills? Is there anybody comes to mind?
Well, when you look at salesmen and when you look at people throughout the world, I mean, usually it's the great business leaders that are good salesmen. Now, sometimes people are such good salesmen but not knowledgeable in other ways, and they sell bad concepts. That's the worst. whether it's Hewlett-Packard, where somebody was a good salesman and sold a concept that obviously doesn't seem to work, or so many other deals where they sold it, but the concept was no good. So in that way, being a good salesman is a negative.
Let's suppose that I have a job, but I have the feeling that I want to start my own business. How would I know that I'm the right kind of person for the entrepreneurial life?
To me, that's the best question you've asked, and it's also the toughest. Somebody has a family, has a job, they have a nice job, they get X dollars a week, they don't have to worry about very much, it's not going to be great, they're not going to live in Palm Beach, but you know what? They have a job, and it's income coming in. The hardest thing to do, in my opinion, in business, is to leave that job and become an entrepreneur, because you're risking your wealth, you're risking your family, your health, your family's health. You're really risking a lot. You have to know in your gut whether or not you have it to be an entrepreneur. Can you handle pressure? Can you handle all of the problems that you're going to be confronted with? And there'll be many, many problems. But the toughest job that somebody has, in my opinion, in business, is to know when to get out of something and when to go in something, because that's a very, very risky proposition.
Who do you admire among the entrepreneurial community? Who exemplifies that spirit very well to you?
Well, there are so many great leaders today. When you look at Jeff Immelt of GE, he stepped into the legendary Jack Welch's shoes, and he's doing a fantastic job running General Electric. Just a fantastic job. And you look at so many different people. I mean, all you have to do is pick up the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the New York Post, and you'll see people that have just done a fantastic job. In real estate, I'm one of those people. In so many other different fields, there are many, many different people. But for every person that's successful, there are many, many more that are unsuccessful. And we're going to make the people at Trump University successful. We're going to give them the clues to success.
So, as you say, of course, many people are in a job, in a career, and many of them are committed to staying there and making their success within the corporate world. Now, you own many companies, and you've mentored many employees. What guidance would you give to someone who wants to make a successful career within the corporate world?
Well, first of all, I'd say there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's terrific. Don't forget, Jack Welch made a tremendous success within the corporate world. You go up the corporate ladder. That's very different from an entrepreneur. And at Trump University, we're catering to both. There's nothing wrong with starting out at a low level at General Electric or NBC or so many different companies and going up, up, up the ladder, and then you become president and chairman of the company and you make a lot of money. You don't make as much money as a successful entrepreneur, but you make a lot of money and you lead a big team. So we're really going to be catering to both. I tell you, there are many people that are much better suited to be within the framework of a major corporation than to be within this other framework of being an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurial skill and talent is very rare, very hard to find, and frankly, it's very scary.
As a young man graduating from a top business school, you had many career opportunities, and you chose real estate. What is it about real estate that you love so much that you go on doing it now, even though you don't have to?
Well, I think real estate, to me, it just has a feel, it has a touch. You know, I see so many people, they invest their money in the stock market, they lose their money goes down. You might as well just go to Las Vegas and roll the dice. You just have so many different problems with that. And real estate, you can live in it, you can touch it, you can see it, you can rent it. Even if you don't get as much rent as you were thinking you were going to get, you can rent it. But there's so many assets that I see to real estate. But I'm not here as a real estate person. I'm here as a business person. Trump University is going to be real estate, but it's going to be every other form of business. It's going to be every business. If you want to build a company, it doesn't have to be in real estate. Some of the great companies, you look at Microsoft and some of the great companies, they were built fairly recently, and they have very little to do with real estate, if nothing to do with real estate. So there are a lot of opportunities out there for wealth and the creation of wealth, and that's what we're going to teach. I happen to be in real estate. I happen to like real estate. I love the artistry of real estate. I have a friend that came to me. He's a very, very rich man. He lays cable in the streets. Okay, doesn't sound like much, but he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He'll make a penny a foot, and he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And he walked into Trump Tower 2 weeks ago, and he looked at me and he said, you know, I look at this great building, and your name is on it, and people know who you are. I make a lot of money, Donald, but I put cable in the streets. Nobody knows who I am. I can't get into a restaurant. But overall, he's happy. What can I tell you?
So Trump University is in the business of teaching people success. So if there's one step towards success that anyone watching this could take right now, what might that be?
I think the biggest step towards success is going to be sign up at Trump University. We're going to teach you about business. We're going to teach you better than the business schools are going to teach you. And I went to the best business school. We're going to teach you better. It's going to be a shorter process. It's not going to involve years and years of your life. It's going to be less expensive. And I think it's going to be a better education. And it's going to be what you need to know. It's not going to be a lot of different theory that doesn't matter and will never be put to use. It's going to be what you need to know. So we're going to teach you business. We're going to teach you life. We're going to teach you salesmanship. We're going to teach you what you need to know. And we're going to also make sure that no matter what you do, as I said before, you're going to love it. Because if you don't love it, it's never, ever going to work.
Donald Trump, thank you very much.
Thank you.